we have decided to separate as a couple. Our relationship was such a huge part of this podcast for you guys, but also for us, from our bickers to Are You Megan, Are You Sue, and all the little funny stories that we shared and were a part of in between. So we really wanted to bring this here as well and be really transparent with all of you. We aren't going to be hosting this pod together every week. We are both really sad to be losing this space.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure you guys were as devastated as I was when I returned from vacation this past weekend and I found out that Meg Rapinoe had been kicked out of the nest. The inspiration of prepubescent boys can no longer identify as a husband. When I left for vacation, Meg Rapinoe and the Sue Bird, they were still pretending to be a happily married couple. They had bonded over their hatred of toxic masculinity. They relished in the fact that they were celebrated by deacons at Woke United Methodist as the faces of LGBT magazine. Several years ago, my inside sources told me that Meg was looking to add to the family by adopting a kid who identified as the plus plus, or perhaps a young two-spirit identifier. Unfortunately, that dream adoption is no longer feasible, as the Sue Bird has finally come to her senses and legally forced the Megster out of the nest. I think it's only right that we observe a short moment of silence for this formerly great couple who inspired millions of young women to find a woman for themselves that looks like a dude. Imagine my surprise. Just imagine my surprise when I finally regained stable internet Saturday morning and the first notification on my phone is the pending divorce between Meg Rapinoe and Curly Sue. I know most in the media are pretending to be heartbroken. They are pretending to be surprised. I'm so sad. They seem like such a loving couple. What could have possibly went wrong? You know, marriage is hard enough when the details of your relationship remain private. I mention my wife from time to time here on the channel, but I've never shown you guys pictures. I've damn sure never shared intimate details about our marriage, mainly because I want to stay married. I don't want thousands of people providing their input on our relationship. Which is exactly what happens when you voluntarily open your relationship to the public. But some people, they are so thirsty for fame. They are so starved for attention. They are willing to do anything to satisfy their never-ending desire to be noticed, even if it means sacrificing their own relationship. Divorce rates on reality TV double the national average. Hollywood couples are twice as likely to get divorced in the first 3 years of their marriage. But for some desperate people, especially those lacking talent, they continue to exploit their relationship while desperately seeking the validation of complete strangers. For nearly a decade, Meg Rapinoe was an unknown soccer player making minimum wage in the NWSL. When she started her career back in 2009, most people had no idea that the NWSL was even in existence. Hell, in the year of our Lord 2026, this dump of a league is unknown to most of the country. 10 years or so into her career, Meg finally came to the realization that she would never achieve her lifelong dream of becoming famous by playing soccer in empty stadiums, or in the case of the NWSL, empty Little League ball fields. So the Megster, she decided to run the risk of being accused of cultural appropriation. She stole the gimmick that was created by Colin Kaepernick and started kneeling for the national anthem. And overnight, a star was born. Over the next 4 or 5 years, Meg Rapinoe became like the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. She and the Sue Bird formed what the media called a power couple. They invited photographers to take pictures at sporting events. They were co-captains of the lead float in the Gay Pride Parade. Two unknown athletes who had spent decades failing to get noticed. They suddenly became mainstream celebrities. But there was just one problem, one tiny problem. Once their athletic careers ended, once the spotlight faded away, they were left all alone in the shadows. Unsurprisingly, a marriage that was built on a foundation of pride immediately fell apart. And to make matters worse, their doofus podcast that was based on revealing intimate details of their relationship, they won't be fighting over ownership in the divorce because, like their marriage, their podcast has been canceled. Make sure to like and subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter at KC_BTL84. Link to the second channel is in the description below. Earlier today on the second channel, we talked about the ongoing struggles at Nike. This once dominant brand has lost nearly 65% of its value in the last 5 years. Now, according to Brian Windhorst at ESPN, there is a logical reason as to why Nike is struggling. I'll give you all the details and explain why Brian Windhorst is absolutely right. So if you haven't already, click the link in the description below, subscribe to the second channel. Headline at Awful Announcing. Meg Rapinoe and Curly Sue winding down a touch more after announcing devastating breakup. For those that don't know, and judging by their numbers on YouTube, I think it's safe to assume that no one knows. Once Meg and Curly Sue retired from the NWSL and the WNBA, once the woke welfare they were receiving from both leagues expired, they decided to try and earn money by co-hosting a podcast together. They named their YouTube channel A Touch More. The only thing that needs a touch more is their viewership. There is a reason their podcast is being canceled. And it's not because Meg has been kicked out of the nest. It's not because the emotional trauma has made it difficult for Meg and the bird named Sue to work together. The channel is being dissolved because they're not making money. And they're not making money because no one is watching. As always, you don't have to take my word for it. Check it out for yourself. These are the viewership numbers for Meg Rapinoe on YouTube in the last 6 or 7 months. As you can see, last month, March, this unbelievably popular show generated around 120,000 views. Now, just for comparison purposes, the channel you are watching right now, which is hosted by the incredibly handsome Uncle KC, before I left for vacation on April 10th, we had generated, I think it was over 700,000 views in 10 days. Now, I'm not saying that to elevate myself. I'm giving you the comparison to show you how unpopular Megan Rapinoe is. The Megster has benefited from years of mainstream publicity, free publicity. She has millions of followers on social media. But like I say all the time, a following on social media, that does not equate to viewership. In order to maintain an audience, you have to offer value. And the market has clearly told Meg Rapinoe she's not valuable. If I had to guess, her YouTube channel with Sue Bird is generating around $500 in revenue every month. And that is the reason the show is being canceled. That is the reason they're not fighting over the rights of who owns the show. But that's okay. If you're one of the dozens who watch the Megster on YouTube, if you're one of the prepubescent boys who takes pictures of Meg Rapinoe to your barber so you can match her hairstyle, Uncle KC has great news for you. Just because Meg and Sue are no longer sedating bots together, it doesn't mean that they're going away. Both of these inspirational women, they are launching shows of their own. Watch for yourself.
I've got a little news to share also, and something new that really I'm very excited to bring to you. I'm doing a little special series, World Cup edition of ATM around the World Cup this summer. And then I'm also going to be following in Sue's footsteps and launching my own show later in the summer. And I'm really excited to bring that to everybody.
You know, I would predict that Meg Rapinoe is going to be nominated for the upcoming 4th annual Huge Embarrassing Failure Awards later this year, but I don't think Meg is going to generate enough interest to even be nominated. To be honest with you, I think Sue Bird will be okay, and the reason I say that, Sue Bird is far more likable. She's going to be covering the WNBA for NBC this season. I'm sure she'll be covering a lot of games involving Caitlin Clark. And the WNBA as a league has a hell of a lot more mainstream exposure than the NWSL. Now, as for Meg Rapinoe, I think she's on the precipice of fading out of the mainstream spotlight, and I think she knows it. Truth is, Meg Rapinoe's entire career has been built on a gimmick. As you guys know, gimmicks are designed to last for a certain amount of time. There's a reason that the WWE is constantly looking for new stars. There's a reason that professional wrestlers constantly change their gimmicks. After a while, it becomes stale. Even legendary characters like Hulk Hogan become stale after a while. Back in the mid-90s, Hulk Hogan was damn near irrelevant. The red and yellow, waving the American flag, take your vitamins, say your prayers. The gimmick got old. There's only so many times you can watch Hulk Hogan body slam Andre the Giant. So what does he do? He shifts to Hollywood Hogan. He becomes the third man in the NWO. Not only did he revitalize his career, he pushed the wrestling industry back into the mainstream. Hulk Hogan had the talent to do that. But Meg Rapinoe? The Megster built her mainstream career on being a victim, whether it was mythical misogyny, whether it was being oppressed because she starts her ABCs with LGBT, or fighting her white guilt by combating mythical racism. Meg Rapinoe built her entire career on a foundation of myths. Problem is, the myths have been busted. America got tired of a millionaire white woman who looks like Dennis the Menace accusing them of being racist. Now, Meg Rapinoe has to rely on her talent. She has to rely on her charisma to build and maintain an audience. And for the first time, Meg Rapinoe has to do it all by herself. Sound off in the comments below. I'll see you guys tomorrow.